Denny Hamlin just got shocking news as he is set to continue his career with Joe Gibbs Racing at 44, but only after the race organization dropped a bombshell and confirmed this past Friday that he will have a new crew chief in 2025. JGR selected Chris Gabehart, Hamlin's crew chief for the last 6 seasons, as competition director. Chris Gale, who formerly sat in the pit box for teammate Ty Gibbs, will be Hamlin's crew chief next season, leaving the 44-year-old with a new team for next year. During the Teardown podcast, Jeff Gluck of The Athletic commented on Gabehart's departure from the No. 11 club, describing it as a gut punch to Hamlin at this point in his career. You've heard Denny say on his podcast that Chris Gabehart is the last crew chief he'll ever have because he intended to finish his career with him, Gluck said. He had found a guy who was obviously a good fit, and as you suggested, just the mere idea of sort of starting over, especially in this era of the next-gen car, driver-crew chief communication is the difference maker. All the cars are the same, and so you have to find these little things. For a 44-year-old who maybe has, 2-3 years left to start over essentially and try to rebuild that, it seems like a very daunting task. There's a lot of just like, man, this guy was at the top of his game crew chief-wise, and had a driver who still had a couple years left where they could win. And he obviously had stated goals of trying to get to 60 wins, try to get a championship. So, it's like, man, I just think for Denny, it's gotta be a huge gut punch because now you're looking at this and going, man, this is gonna be really, really tough. This journey that I've been on just got a whole lot harder. Hamlin and Gabehart had a very successful combination, winning 22 races together over 6 seasons. That equaled Kyle Larson, Cliff Daniels for the most victories among Cup Series driver-crew chief duos during that time. Hamlin qualified for the championship 3 times and finished 5th or higher in points in 5 of his 6 seasons with Gabehart. Hamlin expressed astonishment at the announcement, stating that he had received no prior notice that a change was planned. It does, but again, they've got to do what's best for the company. And I think that they're looking for an improvement on performance from the 54, Denny Hamlin said Friday. And they're looking for an overall performance for all the teams, because we certainly haven't won the amount of races as an organization as we should. Gabehart, commenting on SiriusXM NASCAR radio, described it as tough to believe he may have called his final race. So yeah, the conversation with Denny was tough, Gabehart said. And it's still tough for me, admittedly, to come off the box and realize that maybe I've called my last race. I'm not going to say I have, but maybe I have. And I can certainly tell you that for the first time in 32 years now, going back to my childhood when we go to Daytona the next race, I will not be focused on a singular door number. That is hard for me. That's a very different role. But you know, where Denny's concerned, I think he gets it. We've talked at large and understand that one day this was going to come where he would move on to different things and I would have a lot more to contribute outside of a door number. There's no easy way to have those conversations. But in the end, he's a true professional, and I think he truly understands this will make all of us better. Another NASCAR source predicts Chris Gabehart will excel in his new job at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic outlined on the Teardown podcast why Gabehart is an excellent fit for JGR's competition director position. To put Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole, to put Chris Gabehart as a competition director, really smart move, Bianchi said. They struggled last year really in the second half of the year. The 20-team Christopher Bell was the exception. We didn't have a lot of performance from all 3 of the other JGR cars really consistently throughout the year. They need to be better, and if you look at the role that Chris is going into, they really didn't have somebody kind of in that specific role. They had various people kind of doing the different things associated with it. It wasn't one person. It makes sense that you would put Chris in this role. I think he's going to thrive, and I think he's going to make the organization better. Gabehart was the crew chief for the NUM 11 team, Denny Hamlin, for the previous 6 seasons. Chris Gale, who formerly served as the crew chief for the number 54 team, Ty Gibbs, will now be Denny Hamlin's crew chief. I am very thankful for the opportunities that Joe Gibbs Racing has continued to provide me for my entire tenure here and cannot say enough about how much I have enjoyed and appreciated my time with Denny and the entire 11 team, Gabehart told reporters in a release. They have all taught me so much about not only how to race at the top of the NASCAR Cup Series, but also how to lead a great group of talented professionals. In my next opportunity, I am as excited as I have ever been to work with all our talented drivers, crew chiefs, teams, and partners to help focus all our efforts towards making 2025 one of the best seasons Joe Gibbs Racing has ever had. So, Denny Hamlin's squad will look different in the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season, as Chris Gale will replace Chris Gabehart as crew chief. On the Teardown podcast, NASCAR insiders Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic discussed Joe Gibbs Racing altering Hamlin's crew chief. "Pretty surprising," Gluck said. "You would think that Denny would have way more heads up or way more say at this point in his career with all he's sort of earned and done. For him to be blindsided, it sounds like is kind of..." He said it was a shock. "I was really shocked," Bianchi added. "When I heard the news, I was like, wow, okay." The relationship between Denny and Chris is phenomenal. There's a lot to break down here, honestly. I went back last year to our anonymous poll we did with the playoff drivers, and I looked at it. 8 of the 16 drivers picked Chris Gabehart as a crew chief they wanted, which I thought was remarkable. Easily one of the most, if not the most respected and almost revered crew chief in the garage. Really smart, knows how to build fast race cars, great strategist, great motivator. He is almost a perfect crew chief in a lot of ways. Chris Gale has spent the previous 2 seasons working with Ty Gibbs. The pair did not win any races. They won Rookie of the Year in 2023. In 2024, they won 2 poles and made it to the playoffs. Gale has finally come up about his side of the story. He recognizes that this isn't ideal, but he's determined to make the best of it. "It absolutely is a great honor and a great opportunity for me. It just all came down last week when we knew that Chris Gabehart was moving to a competition director role, and it obviously opened up a position with the 11 team," Gale said of working with Denny Hamlin on Sirius XM NASCAR radio. "And I think it really just came down to, who do we have, who can we get, and what makes our race teams the strongest overall?" I think that if you look at Denny's perspective, right? He's been around a lot, he's had that team, he's got a lot of years under his belt, and he's ready to compete, right? He's got fewer years in front of him than what he has behind him, so he doesn't want to have a complete rebuild, right? You know, moving me over to the 11 team and filling that role that Gabehart had, keeping the rest of the team intact allows that to happen. It allows some continuity to be there where I understand how JGR works. I understand the processes of the 11 team, the processes of JGR in general, and how all the tools work. So, hopefully, that will make it much more seamless than if we start from the outside. Denny Hamlin will be entering a new era. Gabehart accomplished a lot for his career. When Hamlin went winless in 2018, Gabehart stepped in to improve his performance. Gale is at Joe Gibbs Racing for a specific reason. They are extremely careful about how they promote those within the organization. Gabehart is a rising talent in NASCAR. The promotion was bound to happen eventually. Joe Gibbs Racing is undergoing significant changes. Chase Briscoe is joining the organization. Ty Gibbs is taking on more responsibility for Xfinity. Hamlin isn't a youthful driver anymore. Denny Hamlin's decision to start fresh with Chris Gale is not negative news. A new viewpoint might be all he needs to take the next step. Will Hamlin and Gale be successful together in 2025? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.